Hello and welcome to Phuket. Today we're at the Phuket Aquarium where we're going to go behind the scenes to discover the truth about one of the most voracious, deadly predators in the ocean. To take us on that tour is Lindsay Ellsworth. Now, you're the lead researcher at Project Seahorse. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing here.
Hi, Isaac. So I'm here working with Thailand's Department of Fisheries to study their seahorse populations. And so I'm here because Thailand is the world's largest exporter of seahorses in the world, and they're trying to evaluate if their trade is sustainable for local populations. And so there are 7 different seahorse species here in Thailand, and very little is known about them. So what habitats they live in, what are their population numbers like, are they declining over time, and how are some of the fisheries and trades impacting the seahorse population. So I'm working with the Department of Fisheries to try and answer some of these questions.
All right, and now you've also launched a citizens science project to work along with this, to collect data. Tell me a little bit about that.
Right, so we started in Thailand and there was very little information about the local seahorse species, even where we could go and find them. And so one way that we tried to help answer this question was by contacting local dive shops, local tourist organizations, fishers, local researchers, trying to gather their knowledge about where they may have observed seahorses in the past and in the future to be able to kind of help guide our research. And so we have an online seahorse sightings database called iSeahorse, where you can go and tell us about where you found a seahorse in the wild, not only here in Thailand, but anywhere in the world. The database actually is accessible through your iPhone. There's an application, so it's super easy to log. You're out on the dive boat for the day, maybe at one of the local places like Shark Point or Kodak Mai. You see a seahorse, please tell us about it. So we'd love to know what type of seahorse is there. If you've got a photo, you can upload the photo as well. And that will help us try to determine which species live in which habitats and evaluate the sustainability of the wild populations here in Thailand.
All right, well, next time I'm going to dive, I'll hopefully see one and log it. But now here in the aquarium, they actually have some seahorses that have been bred. Is that correct?
Well, so they normally have seahorses in the aquarium, but we're going back to the hatchery so we can see the adults and the babies that they keep here. So they have adult seahorses that they breed, so that way they can kind of have a stock in the back of some of the different seahorse species they have here at the aquarium.
Awesome, let's go check it out.
Yeah.
So in 2004, the seahorses were actually the first fish to be added to CITES Appendix 2. What does that really mean and what has that instigated?
So as you know, the CITES Treaty regulates international wildlife trade. And it tries to ensure that the wildlife trade is sustainable and doesn't harm the local populations where seahorses or where other animals are coming from. So you probably know the CITES trade, not probably by name, but because it regulates trade in, say, ivory from elephants or from rhino horns, right? You're generally more familiar with that. So seahorses were listed in 2004, and they were listed under what's called Appendix 2 of the treaty. There are some different appendices with different sorts of regulations associated with them. And so Appendix 2 means that the trade needs to be monitored to make sure that it doesn't harm the wild population. So it's not banned, it's not illegal, you just need to make sure that you're monitoring and keeping records about how many seahorses you're exporting versus how are the population numbers doing in the wild.
All right, exporting seahorses. Yes. I mean, is this for the aquarium trade or what? Where do these seahorses go?
Great question. So it's both exporting for the aquarium trade and also for the dried trade. So you can actually dry seahorses.
Let's see this. Jeez, like that's a huge seahorse.
This is a very big seahorse species.
All right.
And You can dry them. Some people use them as souvenirs. Some people use them as curiosities to entice people in to see all sorts of crazy creatures that come from the ocean or other parts of the world. Or very commonly, they're used as traditional medicine in a lot of different places around the world.
You're 2 years into a 3-year project looking at the sustainability of the fishing practices here, and you're working along with the Fisheries Department, and you're coming from the University of British Columbia, is that correct?
Yes, I am. The University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada is working with Thailand's Department of Fisheries. And so the project kind of has 3 aspects.
Okay.
One aspect is to study the trade of seahorses. So when the seahorses get landed at the fishing ports, how do they enter the markets? Where do they go? There's both a domestic trade, so kind of demand for seahorses in Thailand, but also international trade. So Thailand exports a lot of seahorses to other countries around the world. So one aspect of the project looks at kind of studying the trade. What are the numbers? What are the economics behind buying and selling seahorses? And kind of mapping these trade flows to understand the trade. The second part of the project looks at the fisheries that capture seahorses. A lot of the fisheries capture seahorses accidentally. The fishers don't go out and target seahorses directly. They're out there trying to catch crab, they're trying to catch other different types of fish, and they just happen to be fishing in places where seahorses live, and so they get captured in the net because seahorses aren't very strong swimmers. Okay. And then the final part, and my favorite part of the project, is where we do a lot of scuba diving to look for seahorse habitat and study the wild populations in their natural environment.
All right, let's go back to the first stage of the research where you're talking about your experts and the economics behind it. What are some of the economic demands that are kind of pushing it forward, and how much would something like this go for if I happen to be in the market?
Excellent question. So if we're talking about dried seahorses, they're going for traditional medicine. And the fishers can sell the seahorses. It varies depending on price. And so something small like this would go for about 5 baht here in Thailand. And something like that would be more along the lines of 1,000 baht. So this is the largest species in Thailand and in Southeast Asia, and it can actually grow up to be about the size of a ruler, about 30 centimeters, which is pretty big. And so those are the ones that fishers actually like to find in the nets, because you get 1,000 baht for them. So that's almost $30 US for just one single seahorse.
So this far in your research, how sustainable is it looking like the practice is, or is it unconcluded at this point?
I think it's still tough to say. We're definitely getting a lot closer to having an answer to the question. We've done most of our research into the trading aspects, so we have some better idea about the numbers and where the trade is going. We're wrapping up the research on the fisheries right now. And we're still continuing with some of the research on the wild populations. And so we need to kind of put all of that information together to look at the big picture. And so one thing that we're finding is we're having lots of reports from people that there are seahorses in the national parks. And so that means that at least initially it looks like there are some seahorses that are protected by the national parks that are already in place, which is really good news in terms of protecting seahorse populations. But one of the big questions will probably be enforcement and how well the rules and regulations of the national park are enforced, and also how's the habitat holding up. There's been a lot of coral bleaching, definitely along the Andaman coast, and continued coastal development and runoff. So it's kind of tough to say how they'll fare in the longer term.
All right, now along the Andaman, on an average dive, how many seahorses are you seeing? What kind of population are you seeing in the wild?
So we can have days at a time where we can go and find absolutely no seahorses. So seahorses camouflage themselves to blend in with the environment, so they're also really hard to find. And sadly, we don't wind up finding herds of seahorses. And so normally you'd only find like 1 or 2 at a time. You would normally never find, you know, say like 25 seahorses all in one place. So typically we'll see 1 or 2 on a dive here on the Andaman coast.
Now, there was an exception over at Pattaya, right?
Yes, so just recently, as in last weekend, I was up in Pattaya doing some research with a couple of groups up there, especially Dive Tribe and Safari, and we went to some of their islands out there, and they have loads of seahorses. So we found, you know, 19 seahorses on one dive, 16 on one dive. Now, not all in the same area. It was kind of 1 over here, 1 over there, but they were so common there that we found quite a lot on just one dive. And we actually found them holding on to the pencil urchins with their tails wrapped around the pencil urchin like that. So when you could find like 4 seahorses holding on to one little pencil urchin, it was unbelievable. Very exciting.
It's good to hear. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for having us. It's been nice to see and learn a little bit more about the most dangerous animal in the ocean.
The most dangerous predator in the ocean.
Dangerous predator?
Yes. So seahorses, when they feed, they have over a 90% success rate when they're trying to capture and attack their prey. And that actually makes them one of the dangerous predators and most effective in the world. So.
Well, I think we'll add the fishermen in there eventually too. But thank you so much. We appreciate it, and good luck with your research.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Seahorses.
From hornbills to macaws, toucans to cockatoos, an exaltation of exotic avians awaits you at the Phuket Bird Park, with spectacular shows at 10:30 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 3:30 p.m. The Phuket Bird Park will amaze and amuse you with its cast of feathery performers. The Phuket Bird Park, near the Botanic Garden in Chalong, is open daily from 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m.
VB Quality Phuket sells vinyl windows and doors construction and decoration equipments under the Windsor brand. We have your solutions for vinyl products in Phuket. Visit vbqualityphuket.com to start building your home today.